Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Citizen Development Live. Today, we have a guest. We have Michael McCullough. He is a Citizen Development Business Architect at Amtrak. Hey, Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm really excited to talk to you. You are quite famous in this world, so it's exciting to kind of start off and get a lot of ideas from what you've been doing. Why don't you just start off, just tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up with this amazing title.
Yeah, thanks. I have a fairly long and varied background.
Right.
I'm retired military, but I got out and I was really looking to reinvent myself. So who am I now and what am I going to be? I'd had an injury that it really forced me to look further than what I'd been doing for 17 years. And so I really enjoyed organizational psychology. I like process improvement. And so kind of working with that, I was always looking for like that one thing that I could use to further a process or fix an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I really never found anything that was super scalable until 7 years ago. I had asked to work on a project and I ran into low code development as I know it today. And from there, it just snowballed. I did seeing the wonderful value in this, really it really caught my eye, and I love it. So,
now, what's your background in terms of coding? Did you know development beforehand, and this is just an easier way, or did you have no experience?
no, I had never written a line of code in my life, to be honest. The most I'd ever done was they're really dating myself here. A long time ago, early 90s, when internet started becoming more mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
I did a little bit of HTML.
Right.
But that literally was it. So I am just like everybody else out there. 7 years ago, lots of coffee and lots of YouTube.
Yep.
And I taught myself how to build apps and dashboards, using low-code tools.
Yeah. Well, take us to like where you're at today. So at Amtrak, what does it look like to have a whole citizen development program? How has it grown in those 7 years you've been looking at things?
Yeah, thanks. It's been a journey.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I like to call it my own digital transformative odyssey.
Yes.
And it's not over. But to give you an idea of the size and scale, it started off with myself 7 years ago. I'd say 5 years ago, our program became official. The IT department, I think they saw the value in it too, but they needed somebody to lead it that understood a little bit more about it. And so I don't know if wisely they chose me, but they chose me to run the program. And to be honest, I came from the project management office,
Okay.
In HR.
Right.
So it's not like I knew anything about IT. But we went from myself to, we've got about 1,000 makers right now. We went from 5 or 6 products. We're pushing 10,000 products now.
Uh-huh.
And out of a company of 28,000 people, we've got just under 20,000 unique users of our products. So well over almost all the companies using our products.
Yeah. You talked about IT. Let's get into that relationship a little bit. Tell me about the metamorphosis of that relationship from when you started. Like, were they fully aware of what you were doing and were like all about it, or were they very hesitant? And how has that relationship grown and changed?
Well, yeah. So I think that number one, the most important thing is having good relationships, and fostering those good relationships, not just with IT, but the entire business. Everybody's going to have a different outlook on what you're doing. They might have a different understanding of it. But specifically with IT, excuse me, they didn't really understand it. And so therefore they didn't really want it, to be honest. But talking to them, convincing them that, hey, I hear your concerns. You don't want this to be the Wild West. You don't want this to be a risk. These are the things that we can do to mitigate those risks. And so, at first it was reluctantly, they trusted me, but again, it was by building those good relationships. And now, to be quite honest, they love it. It's reduced their request for services. It's It's taken a lot of what would have been shadow IT and brought it into the limelight. At least we have visibility in it. And so again, and now we're dealing with AI. And because of the relationships that we've built over the last 5 years, we're able to walk more comfortably in that journey.
Have you all feel like you've pretty well ironed out issues around governance and security and cybersecurity and things like that? Or is that kind of just an ongoing dance you're having to continue to figure out as you add new makers, as you add new people around?
Yeah, well, we've ironed out a lot of it, but specifically now with the implementation of AI, there's another journey that we're on now, and so I would say that now it's not so much of the person that we're having the discussion about, but the technology of, okay, AI, how do we control this? What do we know about it? This, that, and the other. And so we are on that journey together, like right now. So.
You said you have 1,000 makers, which some quick math with 28,000 people is less than 5%, 3%, somewhere around there of folks that are actually making things. As you've been in this world, you know a lot of other people who are doing that. Do you feel like that's a pretty accurate number? If you look at all the employees and you say, okay, I need some people who want to step up and actually make some things. Do you feel like that 3% range would probably be pretty accurate of folks who are capable enough to understand the technical part of it, to learn that much, but also know their domain well enough and also know those things? What's been your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good, comfortable number. You're not gonna go far and not meet somebody who wants to take an idea and see it through to actualization or to reality. A lot of times, it's just a matter of technical expertise. Of not having it, IT is overtasked with things, and so I think that becomes a barrier. Now, I will say that, and I say traditional very carefully. Traditional low-code development, there was some learning that had to occur, and there's still a little bit, but now with like generative AI, some analytic capabilities, it's really starting to flatten the curve. So I see that it's opening up a whole new breed or opportunities of low-code development that even didn't exist a year ago.
Yeah. Well, let's get into some of the technology that you see right now, especially with generative AI. Are you seeing that inside low-code programs right now that people, and what does that look like? How is it helping them build? What's the state of the landscape right now?
Yeah, it's rapidly evolving. I was in Dallas last week, and I was talking to the Dallas Fort Worth PMI chapter, and I was trying to give them a comparison of how I kind of feel like where we're at right now. And as far as AI and low code, we are just in AI in general. AI is nothing new. It's been around for about 80 years. But we are kind of like, if you think of it in terms of aviation, so it was a very short period from the first time the Wright brothers took flight to the time Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier.
Right.
And we're kind of right in the middle right there, where we are rapidly evolving, doing amazing new things. That is inherently giving us more capabilities. But at the same time, there's, I would be cautious in saying there's a lot of risk. There is risk out there, but there's risk with anything. I think this is one of those things that's getting a lot of attention, but it's a good thing. What this is going to do for our industry is, really for any industry, it's just going to put so much capability into the hands of the people to solve for X, where it would have taken a bit more effort to do that in the past.
Yeah, definitely. Where do you feel like in terms of platforms right now, what are the limitations that are still there that you feel like if some things were made, we could even bring in more people, or they could do more of the people you have? What are some things you're looking forward to?
Yeah, and again, I don't get paid for saying this, but Microsoft is a very capable and absolutely wonderful platform. They have so much that it integrates so seamlessly, not only with their own platform, but they've made it possible to integrate with other platforms as well, using out-of-the-box API connectors. I would say that the limitation is still knowledge of the platforms and their capabilities. And then also having that journey of having a discussion. Before this call, I'm working on a white paper with our AI steering committee, and the white paper is literally to help educate the board, some of our C-suite members, because there's still just a lot of some of it is a lack of knowledge, and some of it is misunderstanding. And so I think once we breach that barrier, it's going to explode in use.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already using it within the Power Platform, building apps, and it's amazing.
Yeah. What's the typical onboarding process if somebody, you identify them or they come to you as a potential maker, citizen developer? About how long is it from that moment until they've actually made something useful for their team?
I would say the typical turnaround time, if I averaged it, it would be a week, 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Depending on their level of, number one, comfort and understanding of the platforms, and also understanding of what they want to build. I offer guidance, standards, governance, but if you think of it in terms of like a bowling alley, what you're able to do is within the bumper lanes.
Right.
I kind of keep you in there. I've got very few hard and fast rules. I do that because I find that if I set up these rigid structures, then people view that as a barrier, and then they want to go around them, and then they're not using the tools that I've helped set up and provided them, and then I have no idea what they're doing and no purview over the program itself. So
Right.
I would rather feel like I'm not in complete control, even though I've got a lot of control, versus feeling super safe, but in reality, I don't even know what's going on.
Right.
So I kind of like it that way.
Yep. There's a perception out there that's one big reason for the surge of interest in citizen development is just a generational difference. We have more people coming into leadership roles who've grown up with computers and have grown up understanding technology perhaps a little bit better. Do you see that same thing within Amtrak? Is it that mostly you're looking at younger folks that are more interested in it, or is it pretty well across the board for you?
I would honestly say it's pretty well across the board. I think it's natural for somebody to want to be able to solve their own problems, to add value to what they do. And we all are always looking for additional efficiency. I will be the first to admit that typically when a new employee comes in, that's, say Gen X, or not, I wouldn't say I'm Gen X, Gen Y or Z or millennial. They typically have more awareness of what's out there. They are faster to adopt these things, where my generation, Gen Xers and boomers, they're very capable, but I think that it's more like, wow, we can do this. This is workable. But what I love is specifically with this, they work very well together. I mean, this type of program has kind of closed that generational gap where they work side by side, building solutions and learning from one another.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know a lot of people, we talked in our prep call about the idea of building relationships with key people around you, from whether it be in IT or whether it be in business. You mentioned that earlier. Walk through that a little bit, because this is really just, there's a lot of uncertainty, but there's a lot of excitement around this. But if you don't do it, like you said, with the right relationships, with the right influence that you have around you, it just will fall apart. We've seen other organizations where citizen development does not take off, and could be because of a cultural issue. So tell us about your strategies or just general disposition personalities that have helped in terms of building relationships.
Yeah. So I'll start off by saying that in our organization specifically, we're 51 years old. We were several train companies that got pushed together because train travel at the time just, after World War II, the Eisenhower interstate system pretty much just put all of the train companies out of business.
Right.
So for about 45 years, we did business as several different companies. And so it was fairly dysfunctional. And then I'd say about 8 years ago, it was, hey, this is a good thing, having train travel in the U.S. We want to expand on it. We want to become more efficient. And so starting to bring everybody together, that was a huge challenge because you had different IT departments and different HR departments. And so then going to one, it was like almost like a cultural paralysis that we just didn't really know how to operate. So that being said, when I first started, I would go talk to folks in different departments, and literally the question was, who said you could come talk to us? And I'm like, well, so I mean, that gives you some kind of idea of how siloed everybody was here. Now, knowing that that this was a benefit to the company, I honestly I knew that if I could do one or two things. Well, at first I just thought, hey, this is my job and I need to get this product out for my boss. But then it was like somebody else would see what I had done. And it was like, oh, how did you do that? And I would show them. And then they would do it. And then somebody else would see what they had done. And so I always say, the old adage is death by 1,000 cuts. Ours is success by little wins. Yeah. And so we build, we rise by lifting one another up. And so my success is somebody else's success in our medical department, and theirs is somebody else in HR's. And then so building on that, it created awareness and some excitement. Once I took over or was put in the position of actually directing this program and building it formally, that's where I made sure that I went around and had every conversation that I could with anybody that could possibly be involved in this, which was pretty much everybody. So I would hit IT department and talk to them about the inherent value of this. I would go talk to people in our engineering department and then just ask them like, hey, and I wouldn't go in there saying, hey, I'm here to solve your problems, because nobody likes to hear that. Yes. I would listen to them and I would just say, hey, tell me what you're working on. What are some challenges that you're having? And then I would just literally say, hey, did you know that, we have a platform that you can use to solve that, and you can do that yourself? And they're like, what? And then so I would help get them some training. Then somebody else would see what they had done, and it just kept going. And so I see that this program has built itself on its own merits and successes, but it's incredibly important to have those conversations, because the companies that don't have them, that don't have these discussions, those are the ones that it's not been successful.
Yeah, it's amazing to see that blend of, like you said, success by 1,000 wins, like little quick wins that are there. But it can't just happen like that. It also has to be like discussed and have some program management around it too. That's right. That's really good insight. Do you have any favorites, apps, without getting too proprietary or anything, of things that people have built? Either some funny thing that's like, I had no idea that they needed that, or just some, as you're trying to evangelize it within the company, what are some of your favorite stories?
So I'll tell one of mine first, and then I'll tell the latest one that I've been working with, which totally caught me off guard, but is just absolutely amazing. So how this program was born was out of COVID.
Right.
So COVID happened, and I'm part of an incident response team that when we have events that need extra support, there's about 100 of us that are all gathered together, and we support anything from injuries to pandemics. And so we're all up in Washington, D.C., and we needed a way to track all of our facilities, which is right around 1,000. And we needed to look at COVID, because at the time, COVID was just kind of getting into the U.S., and we didn't know, like, all right, are people going to become zombies, or what's going on with this? How are we going to disinfect a facility if we have an instance there? Right. Plus, we want to do the right thing by doing tracing. So if somebody was infected, how did we think we were going to be able to go back and tell all the other employees, well, hey, you were around this person, or our passengers, hey, you were on this train. But we did not have one system that was going to do that. We had about 8 systems that all individually could track things that we needed. Right. So we're up in DC, and we went to the IT department and said, hey, this is what we need. Can you build this? And they're like, yeah, sure. It'll take us about 8 weeks. And we were like, yeah, we need this like tomorrow, or like yesterday, and they're like, yeah, we'll do the traditional requirements and this, that, and the other. And I think wanting to prove the merits of this, I went to my boss and said, hey, I think I could probably put this together in about a week or week and a half at most. And so not wanting to rock the boat, and thankfully, because I now work for the guy, we went to our like the IT boss and said, hey, I think I can do this in about a week. And I could tell he was like, okay, sure, give it a shot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. I went back to the hotel and I built it overnight. And it was, and again, it was a minimal viable product, but it was like everything that we needed. Plus, instead of taking emails or phone calls from the station managers, they could actually input information into an app on their phone. And so it brought in all these capabilities. Oh, by the way, we were able to protect PHI information, company sensitive information, while being able to distribute this to the entire company. And so that in itself, once people saw this, they were just like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously? And we still use the dashboard today. I mean, albeit it's kind of a moot point, but it's one of those things that stood the test of time. And so that, for me personally, that was one of those things where I was able to show like, hey, this has value, and everybody else got to see it too. So, and then just most recently, so unlike the airlines, trains are not tracked by radar. We send out position reports either through radio or systems that are on board the train through positive train control. But those aren't always, like you're not going to go, okay, the train's going to be here at 3:52. They'll be here around 4.
Yeah.
Because we operate off of timetables. Well, that is an issue for our passengers because they kind of want to be able to know, hey, do I go to the station to start boarding, or what platform am I on? That information is it's held up in choke points, and there's like 3 people that typically deal with that. And so seeing that and wanting our passengers to have a better experience, one of our marketing folks literally built a flow that the station manager can enter in the train number, the time, the platform that is coming. That then gets kind of reworked and put into a standardized format. It then gets passed to the traditional system that we use that only 3 people have access to, and then it gets sent out to all the passengers. And so that it uses AI, it uses some workflow capabilities. 5 months ago, this guy had never heard of this stuff. He came to me and said, hey, this is kind of my problem. What do you recommend? I said, hey, here are your different tools. These are the places you can get training. Let me know if you need help. So he came back to me about a month after that and said, hey, I'm running into some problems. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not the expert in all these systems. I know what they do.
Right.
I know the updates on them and whatnot. But my talent is connecting people together. And so what I did was I was able to get him several meetings with some software engineers at Microsoft, and literally they didn't do anything. They just gave him some guidance. He finished it out, and they're actually testing it at several stations right now. This is literally going to save us millions of dollars over the course of a year. And so, like I said, one guy who is not a computer programmer came to me and did this. And to be real honest and fair, I see this on a weekly basis, things that people do. But just, if I wish I could sit here for hours and say all the wonderful things that these people have done, but that's just 2 examples.
Yeah, that's amazing. If we had more time, I'd love to get into like even the ROI thing you mentioned of like how much money we're actually saving by doing something like this. So it's a fantastic.
So just very quickly, I did want to do that because that was part of my strategy, is showing the actual ROI on some of our products. So that we had 4 project management applications that I built, and over the course of 5 years, they were able to give back in time savings 1.6 million hours of employee labor back to the company in efficiencies, and we're looking at $68 million in savings.
Wow.
And so that's it. I want to say the investment was about 1.3 million.
Yeah.
So that's like my time as a developer, maintenance, the systems, the licenses, and everything else. So you're talking a huge ROI.
Yeah, it's great. And when it gets to that level, it's just like, mind numbing, like what's possible. And like, why wouldn't you do something like that? It's great.
Right.
Great. Well, Mike, as we close up, give me one, as you travel, you talk about this a lot. What's one myth you'd like to bust about citizen development that you feel like is out there?
A lot of people say, or will argue the fact that not anybody can be a citizen developer.
Mm-hmm.
I would always challenge that by saying, yes, anybody can. Now, how good of a citizen developer are you, or the skill sets that you have might vary, because it really comes down to what are you willing to learn.
Right.
And if you're hungry to make positive changes and in like actual measurable progress in your organization, then promote this. Then give your folks the tools. Stay out of their way and let them build. Let them be citizen developers, because you'll really benefit from it in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there was a day when people would say like, hey, we shouldn't give Excel or spreadsheets to people because they just won't be able to understand it. They won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
And people rise up, and now we have better tools than we had before.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Mike, thanks so much for being on the show. I've learned a lot from this. It's great to hear what you've been doing, and all the best to you as you continue to do good work.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and the conversation. So thank you.
Thanks.